my girlfriend said. It's simply dinner with my ex. Stop being so possessive. So I allowed it. Then I arrived at the same restaurant, with my own date. She wound up crying in the bathroom while her ex sat there confused. You know how they say love makes you blind? Well, I was practically walking around with a blindfold on for 6 months straight. Jake here, 32, spent the last 8 years building other people's dreams as a construction project manager in Charlotte, making decent money at $85,000 a year, and I genuinely believed I'd struck gold with Britney. This woman had me convinced she was my perfect match from day one, 29 years old, working real estate with this magnetic personality that could sell ice to penguins, always buzzing with excitement about her next big deal or networking opportunity. The woman could talk her way into anything, which I found attractive at first, but looking back, maybe that should have been my first red flag. See, Britney had this ex-boyfriend Tyler who she claimed was just part of her professional network now, some commercial property broker she dated for 3 years before they broke up about 8 months ago. According to her, their breakup was mutual, no hard feelings. Just two professionals who realized they were better as business partners than romantic ones. Tyler and I understand the Charlotte real estate market better than anyone, she'd say whenever his name came up, which was practically every day. Her phone would buzz with texts from him about property deals, market trends, upcoming networking events at the fancy hotels uptown. She'd take these long calls with him, sometimes lasting an hour or more, supposedly discussing commercial listings and client referrals. I'd be sitting there watching Netflix while she paced around my apartment, voice animated as she talked about square footage and zoning regulations with her ex-boyfriend. At first, I tried to be the understanding guy, the secure boyfriend who doesn't get jealous over professional relationships. I mean, Charlotte's real estate scene is pretty tight-knit, especially in the commercial sector, so it made sense that agents and brokers would need to maintain connections. But something about their dynamic felt off to me, like there was this undercurrent of familiarity that went way beyond just business. The way she'd laugh at his jokes during their calls, how she'd immediately check her phone whenever it buzzed, thinking it might be Tyler with some urgent market update. When I finally brought up my concerns, trying to approach it diplomatically, Britney completely flipped the script on me. Jake, you're being incredibly controlling right now, she said, crossing her arms and giving me this look like I was some insecure child. Tyler is one of the most connected commercial brokers in Charlotte. Do you have any idea how important these professional relationships are for my career? I can't just cut off valuable industry connections because my boyfriend feels threatened. The word, threatened, hit me like a punch to the gut because maybe that's exactly what I was feeling, but hearing it out loud made me question whether I was being reasonable or just jealous. She had this way of making me feel like the problem, like my discomfort with their boundaryless relationship was somehow a character flaw I needed to work on. I'm not asking you to cut off professional connections, I tried to explain, but the constant texting, the long personal conversations, showing up to every networking event he'll be at, it just feels like more than business to me. But Britney had an answer for everything. She'd pull up her phone and show me their text threads, pointing out how they discussed property listings and market conditions. See? This is all professional, Jake. This is how the real estate industry works. If you can't handle dating someone with serious career ambitions and professional networks, maybe you should date someone in construction instead. That stung because she knew I respected her ambition, had always supported her career goals, but she was twisting my legitimate concerns into some kind of professional sabotage. The final straw came on a Monday evening when she announced, almost casually while we were making dinner, that she had plans to meet Tyler for dinner on Wednesday at some new uptown restaurant I'd been wanting to try. It's this amazing opportunity, she explained, chopping vegetables with more enthusiasm than the conversation warranted. Tyler heard about this commercial property development that might need residential real estate partnerships, and he wants to discuss how we could collaborate on it. This could be huge for both our careers. I set down my knife and looked at her. A dinner meeting? Just the two of you? At a romantic restaurant uptown? She immediately went defensive. It's not romantic, Jake, it's business. God, do you hear yourself right now? You're making it sound like I'm planning some secret affair when I'm literally trying to advance my career through legitimate professional networking. I suggested maybe I could join them, Even offered to pick up the check, said I'd love to learn more about the commercial side of real estate. But Britney shut that down fast. This is industry-specific stuff, Jake. You wouldn't understand the terminology, the market dynamics, the client relationships we'd be discussing. It would just be awkward for everyone involved. The way she said it made me feel like some outsider who couldn't possibly comprehend the sophisticated world of Charlotte real estate, like I was too simple-minded to grasp whatever complex business strategies she and Tyler needed to discuss over wine and candlelight. That night, lying in bed next to her, I stared at the ceiling wondering when exactly I'd become the villain in my own relationship, when expressing normal concerns about boundaries had somehow transformed me into this controlling, insecure guy who was holding back his girlfriend's professional success. That's when I decided I wasn't going to spend Wednesday night sitting at home like some pathetic puppy waiting for his owner to come back from her business meeting. Tuesday morning hit me with this wave of clarity that I hadn't felt in months, and I found myself scrolling through my contacts until I landed on Madison's name. Madison was 28, worked as an accounting consultant, and we'd had this thing about a year ago that never quite developed into anything serious because, honestly, the timing wasn't right for either of us. She was focused on building her client base, I was dealing with some family stuff, but we'd always maintained this easy friendship where we could grab coffee or dinner without any weird tension. So I called her up, and when she answered with that familiar warm laugh, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks, genuine excitement about spending time with someone. "Madison, hey, it's Jake," I said, suddenly realizing I hadn't thought through what I was going to say. "I know this is random, but would you be interested in checking out that new place uptown tomorrow night? I've been meaning to try it, and I could use some good company." She didn't hesitate for a second. "Are you kidding? I've been dying to go there ever since it opened. My coworker said their seafood is incredible." We set it up for 7:30, and for the first time in months, I was looking forward to a dinner that didn't involve walking on eggshells or defending my basic relationship concerns. Wednesday morning arrived, and I woke up to the sound of Britney's alarm going off at 6:30, which was weird because she usually rolled out of bed around 8 on weekdays. I watched through half-closed eyes as she practically bounced toward the bathroom, more energetic than I'd seen her in weeks. "Big day today?" I mumbled, still trying to process why she was acting like Christmas morning. "Just want to look professional for tonight's meeting," she replied, but there was this undertone in her voice that didn't match the casual words. I heard the shower run for twice as long as usual, followed by the unmistakable sounds of extensive beauty preparation echoing from the bathroom. Hair dryer running, makeup containers clinking, the works. By the time she emerged, I was fully awake and making coffee, watching as she laid out her outfit with the precision of someone preparing for a job interview. She'd chosen this professional blazer that looked expensive, paired with what I could only describe as a strategically low-cut top underneath. "That's quite the business outfit," I commented, trying to keep my voice neutral. "I want to make a good impression," she said, spraying on this perfume I'd never smelled before, something more intense and alluring than her usual scent. "Tyler mentioned this could lead to some serious commercial partnerships, so I need to look the part." I watched her spend the next hour doing her hair and makeup with the kind of attention to detail I'd only seen her use for weddings or special occasions. This wasn't the quick 15-minute routine she did for her regular client meetings. This was a full production. Every curl was perfectly placed, every stroke of mascara applied with surgical precision. She kept checking herself in the mirror from different angles, adjusting her blazer to show just the right amount of that low-cut top, and I started to feel this knot forming in my stomach that had nothing to do with the coffee I was drinking. "You're really going all out for a business dinner," I said, watching her apply a third coat of lipstick. "Jake, please don't start," she replied without looking away from the mirror. "I told you, this is important for my career. I need to look professional and polished when I'm meeting with one of Charlotte's top commercial brokers." But there was something about the way she said, "professional," while adjusting her neckline that made the word feel like a lie. I'd seen Britney prepare for actual business meetings before, and this wasn't it. This was the kind of preparation she used to do when we first started dating, when she wanted to impress me, when she wanted to look irresistible. As I watched her perfect her appearance for Tyler, I realized I hadn't seen her put this much effort into looking good for me in months. When I mentioned I had dinner plans too, just casually while she was packing her purse. Her reaction was immediate and telling. "Oh, with who?" she asked, suddenly very interested in my evening plans despite having shown zero curiosity about my schedule for weeks. "Madison," I said simply, watching her face change. "You remember Madison, right? We're going to try that new place uptown." The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might actually pass out. "Madison? As in Madison from accounting? The one you used to?" She didn't finish the sentence, but we both knew what she was thinking. "Yeah, that Madison," I confirmed. "We're just catching up, trying some good food. Should be fun." Britney stood there frozen for a moment, still holding her lipstick, and I could practically see the wheels turning in her head as she processed this information. For someone who'd spent months telling me that dinner with an ex was perfectly normal professional behavior, she looked remarkably uncomfortable with the idea of me doing the exact same thing. Walking into that uptown restaurant with Madison felt like stepping into a completely different world, one where I could actually breathe and enjoy someone's company without constantly analyzing every word or gesture. Madison looked incredible in this simple black dress that was elegant without trying too hard, and she was telling me this hilarious story about her client who tried to write off his entire Disney vacation as a business expense because he took one work call from Magic Kingdom. We were both laughing as the hostess led us to our table, and that's when I saw them, Britney and Tyler, tucked away at this intimate corner table that was definitely not the kind of setup you'd choose for a professional meeting. My stomach dropped like I'd just stepped off a cliff, but I tried to keep my expression neutral as Madison continued her story, completely oblivious to the drama unfolding 20 feet away. Tyler looked exactly like I'd expected from Britney's descriptions: tall, well-dressed in that polished way that screams successful real estate broker, perfect teeth, the kind of guy who probably drove a BMW and had strong opinions about wine pairings. But what caught my attention wasn't Tyler, it was watching Britney in action, seeing her operate in what she claimed was purely professional mode. She was leaning across the table toward him, her hand resting on his forearm as she spoke, laughing at whatever commercial property wisdom he was sharing with this throaty giggle I recognized from our early dating days. Her body language was speaking fluent flirtation while her mouth was probably discussing square footage and market trends. Every few seconds, she'd toss her perfectly styled hair or adjust that blazer in a way that drew attention to the low-cut top underneath, and Tyler was eating it up like a man who hadn't had a proper meal in weeks. This was not how business dinners looked in my world, where handshakes were firm, conversations stayed focused, and nobody needed to lean in close enough to smell each other's cologne. Madison noticed my distraction and followed my gaze. "Oh wow, is that your girlfriend over there?" she asked quietly, her accounting consultant brain immediately picking up on the tension radiating from our table. "Yeah, that's Britney," I said, trying to sound casual while my heart was pounding against my ribs. "She's having a business meeting with her ex." Madison raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything, which I appreciated because I was already feeling like enough of an idiot without having someone else point out how obvious this whole situation was. That's when Britney looked up from whatever fascinating commercial property discussion she was having and made direct eye contact with me across the restaurant. Her face went through about 5 different emotions in the span of 2 seconds: surprise, panic, guilt, anger, and then this forced smile that looked like it was physically painful to maintain. I watched her say something quick to Tyler, who glanced over at our table with mild confusion, clearly wondering why his dinner companion had suddenly become distracted from their important business conversation. My phone buzzed almost immediately. "What are you doing here?" followed by, "This is so awkward," and then, "Can you please just leave?" I showed Madison the texts, and she shook her head with this knowing look. "Wow, she's really committed to this professional meeting story, isn't she?" I typed back, "Enjoying dinner with Madison. Don't mind us." The next text came faster. "Jake, this is really important for my career, you're making this weird." I could see Britney trying to refocus on Tyler, but she kept glancing over at our table every few minutes, her professional composure clearly cracking under the pressure of being watched. Tyler was starting to notice her distraction, checking his watch and looking increasingly uncomfortable as Britney's attention kept drifting away from whatever commercial property goldmine they were supposed to be discussing. "I need to use the restroom," Britney announced loud enough for me to hear from across the restaurant, standing up so abruptly she nearly knocked over her wine glass. I watched her walk toward the back of the restaurant, her confident stride replaced by something that looked more like a retreat. She was gone for almost 15 minutes, and when she returned, her eyes were noticeably red despite obvious attempts to fix her makeup. Tyler looked genuinely concerned when she sat back down, reaching across the table to touch her hand in what appeared to be a gesture of professional support. "Are you all right?" I heard him ask as she settled back into her chair. "Just work stress," she replied, but her voice carried this shaky quality that made the excuse sound hollow even from 20 feet away. Tyler wasn't buying it either, and I could see him glancing between Britney and our table, finally putting the pieces together that maybe this business dinner had some personal complications he hadn't signed up for. The rest of their meal was painful to watch, like a train wreck happening in slow motion. Britney kept trying to steer the conversation back to commercial properties and networking opportunities, but Tyler's enthusiasm had clearly evaporated. He was checking his phone, looking around the restaurant, exhibiting all the classic signs of someone who wanted to be anywhere else. When they finally asked for the check, Tyler's body language had shifted from interested business partner to polite acquaintance, counting the minutes until escape. As they gathered their things to leave, Britney made one last desperate attempt to salvage the evening. "Tyler, I really think this partnership could be amazing for both of us," she said, her voice carrying this edge of desperation that made me feel almost sorry for her. Tyler nodded politely, but his response was pure professional courtesy with zero genuine enthusiasm. "I'll give you a call next week, Britney. We can discuss it further." But even from across the restaurant, I could tell that call was never going to happen. Thursday morning arrived like a reckoning I'd been avoiding for months, and I woke up knowing this conversation was going to change everything between us. Britney was already up, sitting at my kitchen table with her coffee, staring at her phone with this defeated expression that told me last night's business meeting hadn't gone according to plan. The silence stretched between us for what felt like hours before I finally broke it. "So, how did your professional dinner go?" I asked, pouring myself coffee and trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up at me with eyes that were still puffy from whatever breakdown she'd had in that restaurant bathroom. "It was fine, Jake. Just fine. Though having you there watching my every move certainly didn't help the professional atmosphere I was trying to maintain." I sat down across from her, and something about her defensive posture made all my suppressed frustrations bubble to the surface. "Professional atmosphere? Britney, I watched you flirt with that man for 2 hours straight. That wasn't a business meeting, that was a date." "You don't know what you're talking about," she snapped, but her voice cracked on the words. "Tyler and I have a complex professional relationship that you clearly don't understand." That's when something inside me finally snapped. "Stop lying to me, Britney. Stop lying to yourself. I've been walking around on eggshells for months, questioning my own sanity because you keep telling me I'm imagining things that are right in front of my face." She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I'm not lying about anything. Tyler is an important business contact, and if you can't handle dating someone with professional ambitions, then maybe we're not compatible. Then explain to me why he looked so confused when you got upset about seeing me there," I said, standing up to match her energy. "Explain why a business partner would be surprised that his colleague's boyfriend was in the same restaurant." Britney's face went completely white, and for the first time in months, she had no quick comeback, no deflection, no way to flip this back on me. That silence told me everything I needed to know, but I pushed anyway because I was tired of living in this maze of half-truths and manipulation. "What exactly have you been telling Tyler about us, Britney?" The question hung in the air like a loaded gun, and I watched as 6 months of carefully constructed lies started crumbling behind her eyes. "It's complicated, Jake." "Uncomplicated for me," I said, my voice deadly calm. "What does Tyler think about our relationship?" She sank back into her chair, and when she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "He thinks we're not exclusive yet, that we're still figuring things out." The words hit me like a physical blow. 6 months. 6 months of thinking we were building something real while she was telling her ex-boyfriend that I was just some casual thing she hadn't committed to yet. Are you kidding me right now? I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay controlled. We've been together for half a year, Britney. We've talked about moving in together, meeting each other's families, planning vacations. What part of that sounds non-exclusive to you? Jake, please let me explain, she started, but I was way past explanations. You kept him interested by making me invisible, I continued, the full scope of her deception finally crystallizing in my mind. Every time he might have moved on, you dangled the possibility that you were still available. You manipulated both of us. She broke down then, tears streaming down her face as the truth finally came pouring out. I needed those referrals, Jake. Tyler controls so much of the commercial property market in Charlotte. If I lost that connection, it would have destroyed my networking opportunities, my client base, everything I've worked for. So you used me as your safety net while you kept him as your backup plan? I said, feeling disgusted with myself for not seeing it sooner. Do you have any idea how sick that is? It wasn't supposed to go on this long, she sobbed. I was going to tell him eventually, but the timing was never right, and the business opportunities kept coming, and You just what? Decided that your career was more important than basic human decency? I was already reaching for my phone, blocking her number before she could say another word. We're done, Britney. Don't call me, don't text me, don't show up at my place. I never want to see you again. 6 weeks later, the Charlotte real estate gossip mill had thoroughly chewed up and spit out Britney's reputation. Madison and I were officially dating, taking things slow but genuine this time, and she'd heard through her professional network that Tyler had figured out the truth about Britney's relationship status pretty quickly after that disastrous dinner. Apparently, he felt so manipulated and used that he not only stopped referring clients to her but also shared the story with several other brokers in their network. In a business built on trust and relationships, word traveled fast about agents who played games with personal and professional boundaries. Britney's carefully cultivated networking connections started drying up as people realized she'd been operating with questionable ethics. Her attempts to reach out through mutual friends fell flat because everyone could see the manipulation for what it was once they knew the full story. Madison and I ran into her at a coffee shop downtown about 2 months later, and she looked like a completely different person, smaller, defeated, alone. She tried to wave, maybe hoping for some kind of reconciliation conversation, but I just nodded politely and kept walking. Some bridges burn themselves, and this was one fire I had no interest in putting out.